Okay, so seen other people do this, seen other people do this and speak about this on Facebook before. Here's me vibing out hard on doing my live, so stoked that I've shown up and give it all my all. And I'm like, I can't see how many people are here. And in the top right corner, it says go live. So I have just done, and it's been fabulous as well. I've just done 53 minutes of my workshop to myself, unrecorded. This time I'm gonna do it. So it means I am technically an hour late, and I apologize for that. And I am devastated. I'm not devastated, it's funny. I'm devastated because I've actually just really held an amazing workshop for 53 minutes to myself, and it was great. And if it was recorded, it would have been brilliant because I could have easily just like packaged that up and popped it off because it was absolutely beautiful. Go live. Oh my days. Me and technology. Yeah, we're not the best of friends anyway. Better late than never, and technically not late because I have already held the workshop once to myself for the last hour. So at least I've got practice time. Thankfully, I don't need to go and get rebeat for an hour, so it means I can maybe condense what I was doing into this time. Oh my days. Anyway, thank you for coming to the Nourishment Workshop version 2.0, second hour. First was exclusively for VIP me. Um, oh, anyway, yeah, so I mean, I'm so excited about this workshop in particular because I came to this idea to do this workshop when I was having a low energy day myself. I was so wiped out. I'd experienced emotional flashback, autistic meltdowns. I was so wiped out. I was on the couch and I just thought, I am so lucky that I have so many tools and knowledge at my disposal that I can still make sure that I can take care of myself in such a way that I can get better and back on my feet and feeling good as quick as is possible in a kind and self-loving way. Now, that knowledge has come from, you know, 15 years in the fitness industry. I started back in 2008, after I had done a degree in fashion design for industry and spent most of the time in the gym after I found I actually preferred being there than I did in the pattern cutting room. At the time, I didn't know I was autistic, so I didn't really understand why pattern cutting just didn't make any sense. So I just kind of left. Kind of the same when I was doing my driving lessons, and um, my driving instructor would laugh and be like, "Okay, done with that then," because we would do like maneuvers in the car park. And then when I was like, I've had enough of this, I was just driving out the car park. And I was like, I hope I don't do this on test. But yeah, so not all bad because yeah, I finished my degree. I did finish my degree, but then I retrained immediately in fitness and nutrition. So I spent 15 years in the industry, and I was Fitness First UK 15 ambassador, so I got to do some pretty cool stuff, like contribute to magazines as a health and fitness expert, and I wrote the pre-race prep for section of the course for the Royal Parks Half Marathon and ran it. And of course, I've worked with like hundreds, if not thousands, of people on their health and fitness goals. What I didn't realize at the time was, now I'm doing everything from like a trauma sensitive perspective, but also from like a neurodivergent perspective, even though I don't exclusively work, say, with people that fall into these categories. I always did follow that that thread and that way of thinking because I just couldn't bear it when there was so many people coming to me uh, that were so smart, kind, loving, intelligent, wonderful people that felt like they were incapable or couldn't do it or just kind of, fed up with themselves over their relationship with exercise, food, their bodies. And I was like, this doesn't seem right to me. Like, we need to get you seeing how amazing you are. And exercise and food is a really powerful way of being able to support your body into self love, self empowerment, reminding yourself what a badass you are, but also taking care of your health, your mental and physical, spiritual, and emotional health. Um, but it can quite as easily be used as weapons for self destruction. Food and exercise is one of the most socially acceptable ways to create harm to yourself. Like, in some circles, it's celebrated. From when I was, the Fitness First UK PT ambassador and I was doing this stuff um, for the magazines and things like that, the thing that I found most frustrating was the fact that it didn't matter how much work I was actually doing in writing and sort of dispelling myths and doing things from the self-loving perspective. It was very difficult when you're only putting out maybe 100 articles or whatever. You're not even touching the surface of what is out there countering. And given that I used to get PR requests from a very well-known tabloid, and some of the stuff that they wanted to talk about, I was like, I no, no. So, like, this is kind of where some of my personal and professional frustrations kind of come through, is that I can understand why people are so confused, so frustrated, and so hard on themselves when it comes to food and exercise because it has built a huge industry, based on people selling to people's pain points, and sometimes also, at the same time, creating more problems than it's fixing. So I wanted to do this, taking my personal and my professional experience and look at we're looking at the nourishment of the times when your energy and your motivation is low, but we are also in this seminar, if you like, looking at that higher end as well, because it's very difficult to create a well-being fitness nutrition program that works with you if you're only willing to look at times when you're really motivated, or as I could do here, just look at the times when things are really hard. But having the pillars at both ends, you can see how you can move those to help cater for, the different levels of energy and motivation that you're going to have at any one time. A lot of the programs that are out there are designed for when you're motivated, when you're driven, I'm ready, we're going. And then you hit a period of time where life happens, shit happens, your energy goes, your motivation goes, you kind of get fed up of whatever it is you're doing, what you maybe started, you were really excited about at the start because there was a big promise of, glory. But then you're like, actually, I hate this, it's awful. These are all things that can kind of happen. Um, so yeah, so this is why the journal in particular focused on identifying some of those things so you can get a better picture of what really motivates you, what's important to you, what sensory needs you maybe have, what your energy levels are like, what you love, what you hate, all these different things. Because there's a lot of inbuilt habits that you're going to have picked up on the way. Everybody has that. We literally all have. I have them, your nan has them, you have them, everyone has them. Uh, but if you want to change your relationship to your body, nutrition, food, and your attitude to needing rest and time to recover, you're gonna have to be able to take out those beliefs, dust them off, see whether they're worth staying there or whether you need to take them off and just get rid of them. Um, recognizing where those beliefs came from, whether they came from someone that you love, like a friend or family, maybe a well-meaning comment that hit really, really not great. Whether it's come from industry, whether it's come from influencers, you've got things like if you look at sociological concepts like the elaboration likelihood model, which looks at how you are more likely to buy something if somebody that you know and trust has already bought into it. So if you see programs where there's lots of people doing it and a celebrity has endorsed it that you really respect, admire, or even a friend that you love, it's more likely to make you buy it whether you're really interested in it or it's going to work for you or not. So there's all these different things to consider. Where did the belief come from? What habits are linked to it? And are these helping me or do I need to get rid of them? So these are all really, really important things. Mm, time to breathe. um, Doing a body check-in is a really good way to do this. Quite often when I'm working with people, I'm working with them to help wire back in their intuition, wire back in their trust of their senses within their bodies, so their hunger cues or their need for specific types of movement or not for rest. Um, the part where this gets a little complicated is when you start to consider things like neurodivergence, like ADHD and being autistic is sometimes these cues, while it's invaluable learning these cues when you're autistic, when you're ADHD, some of these cues are sometimes a little bit with. So you probably hear a lot of ADHD people talking about, forgetting to eat or forgetting to drink water. These things that, you know, are fundamental, but, aren't as simple as going, "Oh, you can't do this." It's doing a little bit of a dance with it and doing this work to bring out how you work, how your body works, how life works and things like that, so you can get a clearer picture of what is gonna work for you. So you can take your power back instead of feeling like you can't do it or it all just happens to you or it is what it is, I just do X, Y, Z. When you can bring awareness to it and where the behaviors, patterns, the beliefs have come from, it's so much easier to take your power back and make changes that support you and give you that opportunity to spend less of that time in those days where you're feeling wiped out and low motivation. So, um, right, I think I am going to go into because I've covered quite a lot on the notes that I did earlier on today. I've been working through the workbook. So I don't know how many of you have been doing the workbook so far. I know that a couple of people messaged me and said, what does this question mean? What do you mean here? And I was like, aha, we're going to cover this in the workshop. And the workshop is going to be live for a week after this. So you've got plenty of time to watch it and kind of go over it and go in notes and ask any questions that you want to in the group as well. So it will be there. Um, but yeah, there was going to be a lot of the things that were in the journal that weren't going to make sense until we did this workshop so that I could explain them a little bit more in depth. But at the start, I have gone with a fully charged day, so these are the days that you've got higher motivation, higher energy first, because these are the days that you're gonna wanna set in those habits and start setting the ball rolling, to make things easier on the days where you don't have as much energy, where you don't feel like, "Yes, I've got this." You feel like, "Actually, no, no." And that on those days, I'm not sitting up, I am horizontal, I am in my cozy blanket and I am either watching or reading something that just doesn't require my brain to do very much. I'm very sensory seeking anyway, but I need lots of comfort and let's face it, sitting upright is not there. But anyway, on the days that you have the motivation, these are the times where you want to steal some of that motivation and kind of harvest it, if you like, so that you can create actions or create things that can be used on those days that you have less motivation. So you can still do things that give you a sense of self-care and nourishment on the days that you don't have energy to access those thought processes or even the desire to get up, let's face it. So let's look at the fully charged days and the questions there. So, what am I feeling on the fully charged days? Now, there's like a multi-pronged kind of reason why I'm asking this question. As I said at the beginning, we want to identify kind of how we tend to feel on these days. And on the fully charged day, it's to remember you are going to get back to those days. Those days are going to arrive again. You don't, sometimes it can feel like, oh, when is this going to and when am I gonna feel like, motivated and full of energy and stuff again? By getting a picture of it, you can just kind of luxuriating and sort of like, I'm gonna be back there. So what do you feel like on those fully charged days? What are you doing? What are you not doing? Who are you interacting with? Who are you not interacting with? Are you is this a time where you're going to do more stuff for your work? Are you gonna do exercise? Are you gonna do it indoors or outdoors? Is there certain types of exercise that you maybe utilize on days that you have those energy that you probably wouldn't on the days that you don't? How are you feeling? Create as broad a picture as you can, accessing all of the different senses as well. So, sight, sounds, physical touch, taste, smell, all of the different things. Build as much of a big picture of those fully charged days as you can. And the next question is, what can I possibly do on these fully charged days to create something that will nourish me on the recharge days? So the days where you're full of motivation, full of energy, these are the perfect days that you can create something or create a plan of what you'll do when you're not feeling so great. Now, you don't want to meditate on that and be like, and draw yourself to having a day where you're not going to feel so great. But it is a good idea to think, well, what might I need then that I have the energy to do now that I might not have the energy to do then? So these are going to be the days where maybe you're doing like a food shop or a meal planning day, like meal prepping. You could prepare some extra meals that might make it easier for you to have access to a balanced meal on the days where you're just not feeling it. Or something that I quite like to do is like bagging up like nuts and having non-perishable snacks kicking about that I know are nutrient dense that are easy for me to grab on the days where I'm just not feeling it. It's on these days when you've got lots of motivation where putting a little away for a rainy day and not just in the money sense is really, really useful. On your fully charged days, what sensations do you seek out and enjoy? So, what do you tend to love doing on the days that you have lots of energy? So, if you look um, at the exercise side of things, I know when I've got lots of energy, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing things like running. I'm going to lift. I'm probably going to lift heavier than on a day when my energy is a little bit lower. So not a low energy day, but a moderate energy day. On a day that I've got a fully charged battery, I'm probably going to really go for it. And I tend to like things that are quite impactful or quite cardio intensive. But these are things that I wouldn't necessarily do, or no, I wouldn't do on a day that I don't have energy or the motivation. So what are the things that you tend to do that you really enjoy and think socially, think of, how you tend to approach your meals and your snacks and things. What are you doing on these days where you are fully charged and what senses are you seeking out most? The next question is when you're motivated and exciting on a fully charged day, do you recognize when enough is enough? Now, this is a note to self, this one, because I recognize that with me, when I've got a fully charged day, especially after having a few days or a week or whatever where I've had low energy and I've not really been able to do very much. I want to do all the things. And because I recognize that, it's easier for me to set a boundary with myself to make sure that I don't expend my battery entirely on my lifting, my running, my whatever, and then don't have anything left for anything else in the day, or worse, to knock myself back into the period of having no energy. So this is really something that's quite important and powerful to recognize. Can you notice a cycle between when you done too much and then ended up in the low days? And is there anything that you could do to set a boundary with yourself to make sure that you use your energy more efficiently and kindly to yourself, that you can have more of a balance? So that's something that, because going for it and driving and being really motivated, something that is so celebrated, we don't often look at the other side of the same coin where it can be a self-sabotage in itself. Going too hard can, uh, put you up for things like injury or making yourself ill, or just wiping you out. So by identifying that and sort of being a little bit more mindful between the big push and the drawback can help get a little bit more consistency, maybe where it's not been accessible to you before. So that the final question there is, what do you feel like at the end of a fully charged day? So you're going to recognize that that's going to be different depending on whether you have set that boundary and either done enough that you're like, yes, I feel amazing, or maybe done a little bit too much and you're like, oh, actually, I'm like, so, um, so you might want to do this over the course of a few fully charged days to get a better picture of what that looks like. But that is so powerful. The self-awareness is so powerful for creating plans and ideas that are going to work for you specifically. So on the next page is the journal sheet where we look at fully charged shopping list. So I did the recharge day one before. Did I? The recharge day? Yeah, recharge day one before. Um, so fully charged shopping list. What you eat and what you need sensory wise is going to be different on a day that is fully charged than on a recharge day. You might still want to do these things together because if you're stocking up for the days where you're not feeling so great, it could be good to sync these. But fully charged shopping list. Now, it might be a bit more confusing because, of course, the sheets are further back, but at the back end of the workbook, you have a meal planning sheet, so where you can do Sunday, just like an idea. It doesn't have to, like, if you're anything like me, um, you might end up eating relatively the same thing for like 3 months at a time. Everybody's different. I mean, I have clients that are so elaborate. I had one when I was in London actually come back with these amazing pictures of it. It looked like something, like food photography. And that was her jam. That's how she really enjoyed, our workout sessions and the learning with food. Was she loved really going in and making these beautiful dishes that were amazing. Um, but then you might get someone like me where someone had once said, "Oh god, you really do just eat to live, don't you?" Because it just looks so like boring. I eat like a bodybuilder quite often. It's quite just nothing really exciting, but that's just kinda like I like what I like, and, that's fine. It's not that I don't love these elaborate things, but I am not gonna use my spoons, for that when I've got just ever really. I'm not big on I can cook, but I'm not fussed. It's not my thing. So be mindful of if you're trying to push yourself into a box that maybe isn't yours. Maybe you want to go all in and really make an event of it. Or maybe you want to do that sometimes, not other times. Maybe you just literally want to do the thing. You just want to do the thing. I mean, other options there if you have money to invest in it. You can do things like meal prep services. things like that. There's loads of different ways that you can approach it, but by doing the sort of meal planning and getting an idea of what you like, which I'm going to go into in a second as well. By doing that meal planning bit, you can go back and then deconstruct that. There's a shopping list sheet in there as well. Deconstruct that to create your shopping list. You can make that even easier still by doing things like online shopping. So I know myself, even though I do love going physically shopping, and I quite like doing it to help encourage Ruby to pick foods because sometimes she's quite in her zone of things that she wants, and then it just changes all of a sudden. You know, I'm autistic, so like I get that, but I find that doing online shopping and doing my shopping list and then just firing it on there and it being delivered stops me buying lots of things that I don't actually need. Um, so therefore it saves me money, but it saves me time and it saves me again spoons. It saves me that physical and mental energy that is spent by physically shopping. These are all things that you consider when you're looking at trying to conserve your energy and making your life easier. Um, right, so fully charged days again, I'm practicing these actions to make my life easier. So I quite often use insomnia as a lesson point for this because I taught on that quite a lot, you know, after I'd had a period of insomnia where I was sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night for like 7 months after having Ruby, and it was all linked with the emotional pain that I was experiencing. Um, I wrote a course over the different things I did because I attended so many different things. I did physical study, but then a huge part of it was down to nutrition and exercise knowledge that I already had and developed on. Um, but also finding that CBT, the methods, a lot of the things that they write out in articles and tips out there are based on CBT, and the CBT just didn't work for me, and ACT was more appropriate. Um, so I wrote this course, and what I'd find was people would talk about the insomnia, and then when it was coming towards the end of it or to come out of it, they were like, "Oh, it's okay. I don't want to do this because it's already fixed." And then it came back at a later point. It's the same with any kind of habit. You don't want to be developing the habits for those days where you've got lower energy or where you're experiencing insomnia, when you're experiencing that really taxing time that is taking all of your energy just to kind of cruise, by trying to learn how to leave that feeling. I'm a little bit about that term as well because part of the ACT acceptance and commitment therapy is it's learning to create safety in that feeling and not trying to rush out of it or push out of it, but create a sense of safety and trust while you're in that spot. But if you are trying to teach yourself how to live, to develop habits, to create habits that support you through that time, you want to build that in the time when you've got that energy, when things are going really well. So you have a habit and you have almost, if we take the sleep example, which is quite common when you're having low energy days, you're probably not sleeping great, is to build that consistent, um, well, the circadian rhythm, if you like, the things that you know are coming that you just don't have to think about. So, what are the things I can practice to make my life easier in the days when things are easier? What can I practice there? So, be it your movement, be it times that you eat, times that you need to sleep. What can you do in that time when things are going really well that are going to make the times when things are a little bit tougher easier to just autopilot? Fully charged days, these are my favorite ways to move my body. So I touched on that a little bit before. On the higher energy days, these are the days that I really want to be doing things that are high impact and really cardio intensive because that is just the way that my energy really works. But how does yours work? What do you like to do to move your body when you've got the energy? And how can you implement more of that in your life in such a way that you're really going to enjoy it so much that you want to show up with the intensity? These are my favorite foods to recharge my body. So, again, on the days that you're fully motivated, fully charged energy-wise. These are the days that we're generally like, "I am gonna eat everything that is so healthy and so balanced." On the days that we're not motivated, we tend to have that mental sort of association to things that maybe aren't, and it wires us back into that inner critic again. So, what are the favorite foods to recharge my body? Again, make use of these times when you've got the high energy and capitalize on that by trying to lock in those things so you don't need to think about it then either. Um, get that locked in. Uh, right, next one's my safe food texture. So this is probably going to be most applicable to autistic people, but I mean, I'm sure it applies to everyone. We all have foods we hate and we don't, you know. But a safe food in terms of being autistic is something that it's like it's a safe texture. It's something, there's going to be a meal. So like Ruby, generally speaking, likes things that have crunch to them. She tends to like things like crackers, um, crisps. She likes thin chips because they're thinner, the crispier. But it means like in terms of nutrient dense foods as well, she likes things like cucumbers, and new blueberries, things that are consistent textures, a predictable texture. Um, and if you're like me, I am undersensitive to taste as well. So I tend to go for things that are very spicy or salty or just very flavorful, or on the converse, very bland, but very predictable textures. Textures is a big thing for me. If it's slimy, I can't. I can't. Mum made a sandwich for me when I was a kid, and it had a lump of marge in it, and this tuna sandwich. And I swear I did not eat butter or marge for over a decade because the idea just made me cake. Just, I just couldn't. So don't feel like you have to push yourself into a box in terms of the type of things um, that are safe and desirable for you. That's really important. I think we get into this idea that you have to eat certain things and you have to move a certain way to achieve a certain result. And it's just not as black and white or cut and dry as that. By understanding your own personal preferences, you can create something that is going to be fully aligned for you and make you feel comfortable and excited enough that you are encouraged to keep going. There's this misconception, particularly with food and exercise, that it has to be punishing or difficult or unenjoyable for it to work. And that is part of the reason why people get stuck in that cycle of not getting where they want to go because they've got this, but it's got to be hard, but it's got to suck. I got to hate it, otherwise it's not going to work. I need to do more. It's just not. It's just not a thing. Um, Part of the reason why this workshop exists in the first place is the idea that there's so much drive towards action and the being super motivated in the industry that unless you're in a field where you're dealing with people that are doing, say, bodybuilding or sports athletic performance, you're not really going to come across what is called a deload. A deload is that period of time where you dial off of the intensity and you implement rest. Like, you'll maybe see a plan and it says rest day on here, but everyone's like, I'm bowling through that because I'm going to get there quicker if I keep going. But it's in your rest period that you rest and you recover and you allow your body to grow more metabolically active tissue and stronger tissues and help with your immunity and your memory and all these different things that are so important that rest contributes to. And it's by honoring and allowing the period of rest, time to be nourishing and flourishing, that you can, really start to see the fruits of the times when you do have high energy and high output of action, because you're working with your body instead of constantly working against it. I see quite a lot of people maybe saying that they're going to do a HIIT class. If you're doing HIIT for, if I'm going to be pedantic, if you're doing high intensity work, it should be so hard and so much energy that you can't really do. more than a short, workout, and it can't be something that you do every single day. Yeah, I see some people program into their personal programs, throwing things at a wall and just seeing what'll stick that they're going to do hit 5 times a week. How? Because you can't really recover from that if you're wanting to do it to the intensity where it's going to really make the difference without you getting injured or just losing motivation or just feeling sore all the time. Rest in that deload period of time is so, so, so valuable and so important. So we looked at the safe food textures before it veered off on a different tangent. Um, from that, it's looking at what your nutrient dense safe foods are. So looking at the textures, the tastes, and things that are coming from your safe foods, looking at what are your nutrient dense um, alternatives that you could potentially build snacks and meals from. Now, recognize that I'm using the term nutrient dense because this is what we're looking for. We're looking for the foods that are going to bring us the most nutrients that are going to help support us to grow, be healthy, have lots of energy. And we're not going from a good food, bad food. This is what I get a lot. So many of my friends and my clients say this, oh, I was really good at the weekend, or this food is really, oh, this food is bad. When you have that, it creates a really sketchy relationship with food, which makes it incredibly challenging to then have a healthy relationship with food. I had a bit of a discussion, if you like, on a post that someone had said about a food being unhealthy, and I did get a bit pedantic. But I just wanted to kind of rise a point from a perspective of someone that's had some a bit of a fraught relationship with food and exercise in my body in the past, and experienced lots of body dysmorphia level, the flippancy of using words like good foods, bad foods, unhealthy foods, we need to be kind of careful of that if we don't want to encourage things like disordered eating or lock them in. To call the food unhealthy when there's not, it was just an oversimplification and kind of like a fear mongering really of food. It's just yourself to make decisions around your food and be with them instead. Take the time to taste them. I think sometimes when we put a judgment on a food as a good food or a bad food, what happens then is when you're denying yourself, I can't, it's a bad food, it then encourages that feeling rising up of, "Oh my god, I want it. Oh my god, I want it." And then you end up binging on it. Not everyone, but from, like, personal experience, withholding from it and then having too much of it and then realizing you didn't even really taste it because it was just to get rid of that feeling. So when you can kind of take away the barriers of good food, bad food, and look at it from, "Okay, so this is nutrient dense, this is calorie dense, but not nutritionally dense," then you can sort of go, okay, well, you're making a choice based on something that is less emergency and opens you up to have more joy and again more trust with yourself around food. So this is why I use the wording for some of things and why I'm a little bit triggered by good bad labels. So on to the recharge days. So now that you've looked at the stuff that you can do on the days that you've got loads of motivation and the type of things that you can do to prepare for the days that you maybe aren't going to have that same time or that same energy, it's time to look at the days where life is just, uh, and you don't have the energy, you don't have the motivation, you maybe don't want to do anything. I'm quite frequently horizontal. I've maybe got no energy. I just want to be in my cozy blanket and just take care of myself. The first thing I need to recognize are, and this is from key questions, is what are my most common inner critic comments, sorry, experience on my recharge days. And what are the things that come up that tell you nasty things when you're already feeling pretty terrible? Because it's already when we're feeling a little bit vulnerable and a bit rubbish that our inner critic gets so much louder. So mine tends to be something like, "Oh, well, you should be doing X, Y, Z, whatever it is doing." So the second part is for each one, can I find three self-soothing statements? So while it's great to be able to seek comfort from other people, sometimes you can actually find that you're seeking comfort from other people, but they don't quite give you the comfort that you're wanting, and then you get a little bit more frustrated. Does that happen? So it's really, really good practice to be able to to separate yourself from your inner critic and observe them. What is that inner critic saying, and how can you turn that round into something that is going to soothe you, is going to calm you down, is going to make you feel loved and supported, and quieten down that inner critic. So finding things that will help you to take the rest as you need it, and find a way to feel empowered in that as well, rather than, I know that I can get into cycles where I'm like, I should be doing this, I should be at this point right now. And none of these things are helpful when you're already feeling like just you don't have the energy. What you need is rest. And I know that that came from sort of like in school, where absence was seen as like some sort of personal failure. And I internalized that I should be doing this, I should be doing that, instead of taking the time that I needed to recover. I used to get a lot of ocular migraines when I was through my school years until I left home for university, and then they started to taper off. So, yeah, how can you find self-soothing statements to disarm these inner critic statements? Because this is going to be really powerful for creating new feelings of safety in that time where you need to rest, and it conserves that energy, but it also allows you to recognize the critical statements that are coming up and check their validity, because they're not. I mean, quite often we demonize the inner critic, but what the inner critic is trying to do is trying to keep you safe. So, how can you find these self soothing statements that are going to soothe you, but also soothe and calm down that inner child, inner critic that is rising up in the time where you're feeling a bit more sensitive? Okay, next question. So, on your recharge days, what sensations do you seek out and enjoy? Now, I love this question, and this was really good in the first one that I did when I hadn't pressed go live. Um, yeah, so on your recharge days, what sensations can you seek out and enjoy? So, I think I said before, it's over there, so I can't get it, but cozy blankets. I like soft cozy blankets and nice cushions when I'm feeling a bit sensitive. I'm not a big fan of I know people love them, but I'm not a big fan of weighted blankets. They don't do it for me. I think my version has become, I have a duvet, but I put a soft cozy blanket over the top of it. So I think that kind of acts as a weighted blanket, but soft and fluffy. But I also crave usually things that are quite beige. But because I've got something locked in, I tend to have again my sort of nutrient dense snacks that mimic my safe foods as well. So I can kind of balance it out, because I tend to find that when I've had emotional flashback or autistic meltdown, or I'm just low on energy these days, I tend to be, or if I've lost a lot of sleep, I tend to be more dehydrated. So I tend to have a lot of water nearby, and it's in a BPA free bottle with some pink Himalayan salt, so that my body will actually absorb the water. I'm probably gonna have a sweet as well, so it's gonna get the whole electrolyte thing down. But being hydrated is like a big thing for me. So I tend to find that if I've already cut up some vegetables, or I do love, so in the last few weeks I've been getting, and some people would be really pedantic about it, but it helps me to get the things that I need. I've been using like pre-prepared fruit and veg, so that I don't have to think about cutting it up for me to then have it. That's something where in the last couple of weeks, and why I'm glad that I'm doing this seminar now, when I've just had a couple of recharge weeks where I've needed to just down regulate and do what I need to just exist. Um, yeah, these are the things that make it easier. So having that pre-prepared vegetables and stuff like that really helps me to get that nourishing stuff in. But sensations, I wanted to bring it up because I crave things like having just lots of decaf coffee, instant decaf coffee with oat milk. And while that's fine, you think, okay, well, you're not having all the caffeine with it, that's fine. Sorry, excuse me. I'm away to pick up Ruby soon, and I need to charge my phone since I've had to do this talk twice. Um, what was I saying? Yeah. So I would quite happily drink those decaf coffees all day. It's like a sensory thing. It's really comforting having that. And I think it's the sensation of having a hot drink. Um, but if I have too many decaf coffees, sorry, showing you my bum and everything, too many of these decaf coffees, I don't feel good. It irritates my gut having too much of it. It makes me feel quite dehydrated, and I just kind of get the ick a little bit by having too many. So, the reason why I find this question so powerful is because it's really helpful to identify, okay, so which sensations are you seeking out? But also, which ones are going to truly support you and which ones are just going to prolong you feeling kind of miserable. So it's great having your favorite safe foods and safe drinks and activities and things like that, but if they're going to physically make you feel worse, it's looking at setting that sort of like, well, how much of it do I have? Can I, and it's not going to be perfect. It's infallible. I have days where I literally just go for it with everything. And the best thing I can do on those days is be like, you you have done what you've needed to do and you feel best for you in this time, and you're doing a great job. It's taking the judgment out. So, like in that first question, taking the judgment out of what you're doing or what you're not doing. What 3 ways can I take care of myself with minimal effort? So it's finding the things that you can do. Can you carve that space out where you can just do nothing? Can you get someone to watch the kids for an hour or a day? Or can you just let everybody watch films for a day? Can you have your blankets at the ready? What 3 things are going to make it easier for you to take care of yourself in the moment? Who do I let know that I'm having a recharge day and may need some kind words or comfort? So, if you're like me, where your lower days and the days where you've needed a lot of support haven't always been met with kindness and compassion, instead been met with kind of derision and mm, burden vibes, which was something that was a big thing for me. It means that sometimes on the days when I am struggling, I still can find that I withdraw. I'm very, very fortunate that I've got amazing friends that recognize when I'm doing this and check in. But at the same time, it's something I have to be mindful of. Who can I say I'm just having a bit of a like a meh day and this is where I'm at. Just in whatever way. I'm not when I'm reaching out as well, I'm generally informing rather than even I've a lot of the time I've got it covered and I know what I need and what I want. If I want company, obviously I'll ask for it, but quite a lot of the time if I'm wiped out. I just want to just be, just exist. But it's really helpful for me to inform someone that I'm not doing so good. So then it gives them the opportunity as well to check in on me in days to come as well to check how I'm doing and everything like that and reminds me that I am loved, I am supported. And sometimes if you've got that feeling or that story that you aren't loved or you aren't supported or the burden story, which I'm sure is quite common, it is easy to feed that on those lower days by isolating and withdrawing. So it's a really good idea to get into the habit of being like, look, I'm having some days where I'm not feeling too good and just, and however that unfolds there. Right, we've got one more question here. How can I link these how can I link these recharge days with a sense of empowerment? So, yeah, so by doing all these things, that's really how you link it back up with that sense of empowerment by recognizing your needs and honoring your needs. That is going to be taking control of the situation and viewing it in a different light instead of seeing your recharge days and the days when the energy is low as something that you need to escape or get over or quickly quickly leave, how can you find safety and empowerment in those days that you're giving yourself what your body needs? Time, space, just existing, time to rest. That is incredibly empowering. As I said before, in terms of, even fitness and exercise, it's in that rest period that you are going to grow and get stronger. And and with all of these different things, it's rewiring those associations that you have and understanding that all of the different parts and energy and the ways that you live and the things that you've done up until now are all valid because they have all sustained you to that point. So this is some of the things that you might think of when you're doing the journal and finding the empowerment. Right. So we've got one more page. I'm not going to go over the other pages because there's no point going over the I said a little time before, when you identify your foods, your safe foods, and nutrient dense ones, you can then go in and play around with what meals that you love, that are balanced, and create that in the meal planner. From that, there's also a shopping list where you can deconstruct. When you go through all the other questions in the journal as well, there's also a habit sheet as well. So you can pick out, I think it's about 5 different habits and start making sort of commitments to ways that you can start making yourself feel better. So little things that are easy to implement. Start small. And even though there's 5, I always say to people to start with one habit and nail it and then go on. And to make sure that you're underachieving, or sorry, under goal setting so you can overachieve. Because if you start setting huge goals, so something that's I see really common in the gym is people say, I'm gonna go to the gym 5 days a week. Da, 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 da. And then when they can't sustain that because it's just not been part of their routine before, they feel like they're failing, then they quit and it's down to nothing again. And that stop start creates that illusion of it being really hard because it takes 2 to 3 weeks for your cardio fitness sort of levels to elevate to the point where it doesn't feel just like, oh, this is so hard. So if you've always got that start period, you're going to think, oh God, this is really hard all the time. So start with what can you absolutely commit to, and anything else is a bonus. And then you can use journaling at the end of the day to be able to be like, well, this is what I've achieved, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm nailing it. And it'll build your motivation and make it easier to keep going. So your recharge shopping list, we went over that a little bit before. That's the things that are going to be easy for you to eat. So like I was saying, pre-prepared things that can go in the freezer, shakes, non-perishable foods that are just easy to grab and easy to eat and don't require a lot of thought, preparation, or anything like that for those days, just to make sure that you're eating. Because if you don't have much of an appetite, or it's very difficult for you to have the mental energy to eat, but your body is still going to be hungry, that is not going to encourage sleep. If you're finding you're having sleepless nights around the time that you're having these low recharge days, they're probably going to be linked. And one of the things that you're going to want to lock in is making sure that your body is satiated enough for you to sleep. Otherwise, the cycle is going to keep continuing itself. And when you're losing sleep, it affects the hormones that affect not only your appetite, but how you store body weight and how you're recovering as well. So these are all things to think about. Why it's worth taking care of yourself all the time and making sure cutting corners. It's another thing I got a lot with training clients was cutting calories really, really drastically. So having something that I'd given them a guideline and they thought, that's too high, I'm going to cut it down lower and it'll happen quicker. And the opposite happens. All you're doing is you're training your body to do all of your tasks on less calories so that when you then eat more, your body's going to store. So it's, cutting corners rarely works very well for us. Right, last few questions. I put these on hold to make my life easier. So there's going to be certain things that you should on yourself that are going to be worth pulling out. So what things can you put a pin in on the days that you're not feeling great. For me, laundry tends to be the one. And if it gets too much, I just take it to laundrette. And I know that's not accessible for everyone, but that is just one of the things that I know that I am prepared to do if I'm going through a period of time where I'm just like, and it builds up too much, I'll just take it and reset it. But otherwise, I'm generally only missing a day of it and it doesn't build up too much. Is there anything that you can put off doing on the days that just don't need done that day that you maybe convince yourself that you absolutely have to? These are my favorite ways to gently move my body. So for me, I like to do breath work. So certain types of breath work, not all breath work. Um, so Nadi Shodhran tends to be one that I like to do. So pranayama, yoga pranayama. When I've got a lower energy day, if I know that I need to get my breathing tapped in, and also I like doing low to the ground yoga. So not even so much yin, but I just love doing sort of like bedtime cozy kind of flows. These are the types of things that just loosen my body and relax it when it's feeling a bit blah, because my body responds differently if I'm having emotional flashback in particular, and my body experiences armoring where my muscles all tight up, everything comes in and upwards. It's easy to start gaslighting yourself and saying it's all in your mind, but it's not. You're having physical response. So if you go push yourself through really aggressive movement, you predispose yourself for things like injuries and things like that. And this is something to be aware of. You know, maybe friends and family who maybe don't understand what it is to have any kind of chronic illness, or maybe even like myself, you've experienced medical gaslighting again, where it's kind of inferred that it's not, it's all a mental thing, but when you've got physical aspects to it. So by doing things like yoga that are gentle and help you loosen off the muscles and help you to feel sort of safe and open in your body again, can be really, really, really beneficial. My self-soothing mantra is, so think of something that you can say to yourself when you're feeling low on energy and a bit vulnerable, that is going to help you feel at home in yourself. I calm my senses with. For me, again, it's my cozy blanket. I love my cozy blanket, and I quite like lavender smelling things for sleep time, and I love Sleepy Green by Lush. So, what things can I use to calm my senses with? So, breath work again. Breath work is like a big, big thing, and gently moving my body. These are all things. These are the list of things that you like to do when you're not feeling 100%, and I can create safety in my body by. So I think I've kind of explained all of those things already there. Um, yeah, so I mean that's everything in the journal, and I think I went over everything that I wanted to. Man, I wish that first one was gold. Always the way. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Um, I have. I've gone through everything. I mean, when you're the last thing I guess I could say here is it's a labor of love. So when you're wanting to create a well-being strategy for yourself, and something that is gonna support you and nourish you and make you excited to show up, it has to be a labor of love. If it is shrouded in shoulds and judgment and having to be hard, it's just not gonna be something that's sustainable. When you embark on any kind of lifestyle change, particularly fitness and exercise, I see it all the time. It has to be something where you ask yourself, is this like is this sustainable? Is this kind to myself? Is this something I am going to truly enjoy? I'm not saying it's not going to be hard or there's not going to be times where it's difficult. Your motivation is naturally going to peak and trough. It's naturally going to do that. And by doing the things that we covered in the workshop and in the journal, you're going to get a better understanding of what that looks like. But look at it. Is it going to be a labor of love? So it's got to be something that's intrinsic and something that is motivated by something that deeply, deeply means something to you. Um, so it's something to think about. Have your well-being goals, your fitness goals, your motivation goals, have they been coming from a place of self-empowerment, love, and a genuine desire to want to feel better and feel deserving of it? Or is it attached to an external outcome or one based on a sense of belonging? And do they need to be separated? Same from things where it's easy to use fitness and body goals as well for um, it's I mean, it's the most socially accepted way to self-harm in a sense, create harm towards yourself, and it's an easy way for you to keep yourself separate from your goals. If you've told yourself that you can only achieve X, Y, Z when you're XYZ shape or can do XYZ. So it's about unpicking these things as well. So I hope this has been really helpful. Um the seminar is going to be up in the group for a week, so you've got plenty of time to go through it, make any notes, ask any questions in the group, and let me know if there is anything that you need any help with. You will also have access if you do want extra support with creating this or going through the sheets or just building your own well-being strategy or some coaching, then you can let me know. I will pop in the group some options. So there's going to be message only coaching. There is going to be a well-being strategy session with a month's worth of message coaching with that. And there's also going to be a short month's coaching available as well. If they are something that you would like the details for, then let me know and I would love to help you with that. But as I say, in the group, it's going to be open for a week. Get the journal downloaded, watch this as many times as you need, and if you think that there is someone that is gonna be a benefit of or is gonna help someone, then, get me to invite them to the group or invite them to the group and let them know if it's gonna help. You can share it in a post if you've enjoyed as well, um, and yeah, I better go and get Ruby now. Thankfully, this one is recorded. Have a great afternoon, and thank you for coming.